CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success. There he is, folks. It's Trent McJunkin. He's my homie. He's over there on the East Coast. He's doing great things. And we want to get you a little bit of an update on something he's been working on. If you don't know about it, it is called the Cycle of Doom. And this is really a well-structured, based in a kind of foundational approach of how to identify it, what it is. And this is something Trent's worked on for a long, long time. If any of you don't know, I would say he's a real deal pro that I always want in my stable and in my corner when it comes to anything facilities, maintenance management, asset management, production management, leadership type things, all that stuff. Trent McJunkin, welcome back to CMMS Radio, brother.
Thanks for having me, Greg. It's always an honor and a privilege.
Yeah, man. So we've had a bit of an exchange over the last several weeks as you released the Cycle of Doom series. Today was the 7th installment of the Cycle of Doom, which is going to lead into something else. So that's a bit of a teaser, folks. If you want to read about the Cycle of Doom and these 7 pieces, essentially, I'd say levels as the Cycle of Doom really entrenches in your organization, how and why, you can find it under Trent's profile on LinkedIn, and we've also got him on CMMS Radio underneath the link Real Deal Pro articles. So how did you come up with this idea in the first place, Trent? Like what was kind of swimming around you where you were like, look, this is what this is called. This I got to do something about this. I got to write about it. How'd that start?
It really comes from being on the factory floor. Sometimes just in the middle of a breakdown. Sometimes it's leaving the house at 1 a.m. to go back to the plant. Sometimes it's just stuck in the chaos of the day-to-day firefighting. But I've always enjoyed a good story, and I've always enjoyed being able to tell that story and write. So it just came to me one day in a conversation. I said, we're just stuck in the cycle of doom. And I was like, that's got a really good sound to it. So I wanted to explore that more. And as I did that, I thought, I think people will find some value in this. So I started writing a few drafts, found the courage to actually publish one, and people seemed to like it, and I just kept doing it.
Yeah, I think oftentimes that's the best way, because you don't necessarily want to do it the way everybody else is doing it. You want to do it from the perspective you have and that you're experiencing. And you've also been really heavily involved with team building and trying to maintain cohesion of a team, trying to, I would say, help or facilitate the right behaviors happening, on the factory floor, whether it's related to the production itself and those machines or the facility itself, because you're usually in environments where you're dealing with both of those things. Is there a specific thing that people can kind of keep an eye out for? Like if they've never heard of this and they didn't go and read any of it, are there clues when they walk out on their factory floor today that they should have an awareness of, that, hey, you might be in the cycle of doom or some level of the cycle of doom?
I think it's very easy to pick up on if you're looking for it. If there are no standards for anything, and this is the way we've always done it, that's another clue. Or this line just runs bad, or we've always done it this way, and people just make up for the shortcomings of design or poor procurement practices. Everything's just hodgepodge, mismatched, and doesn't really do what it was intended to do. You may be stuck there. Or even, do people understand why the right thing matters? What they do every day, why does that impact the bottom line? How do they make a difference? If they don't understand that, then I think you're going to be surprised when you realize that you are indeed inside the cycle of doom.
Do you think people are far more receptive to like talking about that idea of why they do what they do, why their role is important, those types of things? Or because I think a lot of people feel like if they're in a leadership role, maybe they're new to it. They didn't get a lot of training around it. They've been out on the shop floor. They've been doing all the work, but now they're in this leadership role. They probably assume that if they're going to go talk to their people like that, hey, let's get together and talk about the real whys and whatnots about what you do, why you do, all that type of thing. They think people aren't going to be receptive to it. But have you found that it's kind of the opposite? Because I've been in on some of your meetings when you're with an entire team, and I get to watch the people while you're talking and engaging and see their receptiveness and their willingness to participate. Is that more common, or is it more often you get resistance?
I think it depends on your level of trust with those people and also your delivery. You're going to get a whole lot more positive interaction, and you may just get the hard truth if you come at things with they are the experts. You're just in their house, you're in their territory, and if you say, "Hey, this doesn't make sense to me. Can you explain it the way you understand it?" And if you can all be on that common ground of, "Hey, this is chaos and this doesn't make any sense. Let's find a better way together," they're more likely to say, "Hey, what about this?" Or "I think we should do this instead."
Yeah, for sure. The ideas and observations of your frontline team, the people that are really getting the stuff done, are critical to being able to make assessments, adjustments, and of course, improvements. So when it comes to not only the cycle of doom, but when we start connecting that cycle of doom to direct outcomes, maybe we're getting OEE that's subpar. Maybe we're getting overall production disruptions that we just start to accept. I mean, how how do people really turn that corner or recognize when they're turning that corner out of the cycle of doom?
I think you have to be very honest with yourself. And if you're seeing these quality issues escape the plan, you're having OEE issues, uh, overtime is through the roof, you have to not put a band aid on that one thing. You have to identify what's the upstream signal where you lack clarity. Where is the ambiguity that's baked into your entire plant, and address it there? Address the root cause, not just the symptom.
Yeah, so even with our teams, we would apply those same principles that we do with machines,
Absolutely.
where we want to understand where is it going wrong, why is it going wrong. Otherwise, anything you do is going to be temporary. And even here's something interesting I want to ask you about. When I should just ask instead of prompting it like that. But if you if you get into these environments where things start to improve and kind of stick, right? You've got the overall cultural behavioral changes where people are moving really really well. It's almost invariably that starts to fall down again, and it becomes its own cycle. And I think a lot of us, when we talk or if we consume other people's content, the people we know in common that are just like the real ones, right? The real deal pros that are really doing this years and years and years and all this stuff. They'll tell you eventually someone leaves, eventually someone comes in and kills part of a project that's going to bring us to that level of improvement, and we fall right back into the same cycle. Or people come in, do all this great work, like maybe you come into a facility, get it commissioned, all those types of things, and then within months, pretty quickly after you've left, it starts to fall apart. What drives that? I mean, do you think it's possible to really prevent it, or is it like anything else where you have to have a strategy behind recognizing when it starts to fall back the other way?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that uh, we as leaders, we often do a very poor job of telling the story of why do we do things the way that we do them to achieve the results that we desire to see. Uh, we say, all right, this is just how we do things here. Here's the standard. Abide by the standard. Here's the play. Run the ball. But we don't educate the entire business as to here is what our best practice is, and here's why it works for us, and here's why this isn't a flavor of the month. Here's why this isn't just a fad. It's not a banner on a wall. Here's why it works. And get that real buy-in and not that just rah, rah, this is producing some good short-term results. And people can really dig in and create that culture amongst themselves. And when a leader does exit the organization, that culture stays.
Yeah, unless another leader dips his hands in there and kind of messes it up, strips some
Right.
things away that have made that possible for the entire team and organization. That's another thing that, whether it's the cycle of doom, whether it's the way people celebrate the heroes that are putting out all the fires when we should really be preventing the fires, that whole kind of a thing, it's delicate.
Yeah. What gets rewarded gets repeated.
It's a good point. And a lot of people don't even know it. They're taking it for granted, or it's just that status quo, right? That, hey, it is what it is. You've talked about it. We've always done it this way. It's always been like this. I was reading the article today, installment number 7, which is really the final stage of the cycle of doom, where it's institutionalized. So now it's just accepted that, this machine runs this whole line here runs a little bit different. We're gonna probably have 2 or 3 failures throughout the day, and that's just how it is. And not acceptable, leaving a lot of money on the table. And this leads to one of the central components inside of the cycle of doom, is where you have burnout at different levels. Does the burnout, in your view, experience, however you want to answer this, does the burnout for the leadership that's trying to run this entire process, does that happen for them first, or do they find out later or suffer from the burnout later as compared to the front line? Because the front line, I feel like the front line might be getting the most burnout. What do you think?
I think the front line feels it first. Certain maintenance people, they love to wear the cape and fly in and save the day. But any of those technicians who's done this for a while will tell you that gets old. And everybody wants to come in and save the day every once in a while. And, there's a parade and a pizza party and all this other cool stuff. But they don't want that every day. Nobody wants that every day. Eventually, the boat gets paid off and the house gets paid off, and you don't need 30 hours of overtime every week. And they want to come to work and just coast and do the right thing and do value added work and do a good job, and not just bang their head up against the wall every day. But I think the technicians definitely feel it first. They're usually slower to voice it, and they're really down that hill before they start grumbling and griping and really saying, here's what's hurting us. Here's why we're all frustrated.
So by the time they're making it really apparent, you got serious problems.
Absolutely. And if you as a leader, if you aren't at the tip of the spear and you're not the one who's trying to be at that point of friction to eliminate those roadblocks, it's probably too late for some of those technicians and maybe even that organization before you start to see some serious repercussions.
Yeah, I would imagine. Well, so you've talked about a few things, and first of all, shout out to Reliability Yes, because when you're talking about the hero, the first thing I'm thinking about is Captain Unreliability. Just the cape and the like exact opposite of what reliability is. That's what he's doing, but it's cool stuff. And then I'm thinking about these other things we hear about where you've got so many organizations that have this happening right now at some level, and the cost, and then how it impacts them long term, let alone the short term. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of heartache. It's a lot of starting over. If people burn out, they leave. And then you got to bring in new people and train them at least at some level. And that's reinvestment. And again, it gets back to that idea of a cycle. So question, I Now I'm going to put something up on screen. You've already seen it, so we'll pretend you're looking at it right now. So
All right.
I put something out about the 2025 Maintenance Zero Awards, which is like a play on hero, but zero. And there are three nominees. One is Captain Unreliability. You know all about him and what he is, what he does, what he doesn't do, right?
Yep.
Then we got Bohica, which basically, for anyone that doesn't know, you can look it up, but it's basically, here it comes again. Relying on AI, just kind of going through the motions, big dumbass look on his face, and he's kind of there doing it, but not really. And then we got Red Executive, which is the leader that just doesn't get it, never empowers anybody, takes credit for everything, protecting himself. If you had to vote for one of those three as in 2025 that kind of disrupted your processes or that you heard about or that you think is the main culprit in disrupting the possibility of a more reliable environment, who would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I remember reading Captain Unreliability for years, those articles, and everybody got a kick out of them. But for 2025, I would have to say Bohica, because the cycle of doom had a mascot of just repeated, just fumbling over yourself and repeated faux pas. I think it would be Bohica.
All right. That's I had to throw it in there because the reason I want that out there is more for people to think and have some fun, but it's pretty serious.
Yeah.
You know, like the cycle of doom itself, if you want to just focus on leadership aspects of that, leaders don't want to recognize it because that's going to create the kind of work they don't want to do. Right? Because if you solve those problems, it's going to take a lot of time and effort, and there's not necessarily somebody that's going to come and pat you on the back unless it hits those organizational numbers, what you've done. So that's like the Red Executive thing. The Bohica thing is, you already described it really well. What do people need to do to recognize those characters, if you will, in their environments?
I think you have to have true conversations with the people that you work with every day. Don't just try to make it through your shift, or we just got to make it through this quarter, or if you're at a high enough level, I've just got to make it through this year. Um, you have to transition into a mindset of being a steward and having stewardship over whatever your piece of the pie is. I don't care if you're the person who is calling all the shots, you're at a very high executive level, or if you're the person who puts the widget together for this one little thing on this one little product, you do something that's value added. And if you start to frame it in a stewardship mindset, one person can't make a huge difference. But if you can start to rally people to say, hey, we can all do a little bit, and many hands make light work.
Yeah, that's many hands make light work. That tells it right there, man. That's good stuff. Let's talk about a little bit about the chapter activity this year. The SMRP of the Carolinas chapter.
Yep.
I know one thing that came out of a more recent meeting was a lot of people talking about CMMS. Of course, I like talking about CMMS, and you actually do too, because you see the value of it as a tool when it's done right and you're doing standardization and you kind of know where you're going. It can really make an impact. But people were asking you a lot of questions about, I think, what we're always talking about. Where do you start? How do you assess what you've already got? How do you improve? And why should you be doing it in the first place? Anything in particular that came out of those kind of talks and questions that stands out in your mind as like a number one, or a couple of common things that the people are just still asking about?
I think the biggest trend that I saw was people struggled to understand how how to prepare their culture, or how to change their culture to be more receptive of a CMMS, or implementing a CMMS, or utilization of a CMMS. And I think it falls back to leadership, and it's not built in on a cool dashboard. It's not this bells and whistles software. You have to build out understand your business processes, like George Williams says all the time, and understand what kind of solution do you need, and being able to pitch that up and down the chain of command and get people on board.
Yeah, and that's another one where you're speaking multiple languages, and you just kind of have to take a beat and don't get frustrated. It's an opportunity to figure out how someone wants to learn about it. And if you're, I would just say, when somebody makes a presentation, to get buy-in from leadership, power of the purse, whatever, or from their team, and they encounter some resistance on that, explore the resistance. Like, don't get all pissed off about it and frustrated. Look at it as an opportunity to learn a little bit more, because you're not trying to crack. Well, you might be trying to crack a code, but you're not trying to, find a chink in the armor of those individuals. You're trying to find the opportunity to get the organization improved, and each one of them is slightly different, right? They talk different languages. What do you think happens moving into, because day and a half, it's going to be 2026, with all the kind of technology that we see in maintenance? And I know, of course, AI, most popular thing in 2025. What do you think is going to happen as we move through into 2026 with the technology? What I mean by this is it going to be more of a refocus on the basics, or is it going to be even heavier on the shiny stuff and the promise of tomorrow that never comes?
I would say that I'm very optimistic and hopeful that uh, the year of 2026 is where these people who have sensors and cool technology, they begin to partner with these people who are focused on the basics. Because you see
Mm,
it all the time. There's always this new factory opening in the U.S. And there's this resurgence of manufacturing, and there's a need for technical people. There's a need for skilled folks, and technology is awesome. But if you don't build it on a foundation of being brilliant in the basics, it's only just going to be this shiny gadget. So I think the people who are going to be wildly successful in 2026 are going to be those people who partner with the real deal pros who have been doing this for decades and say, hey, here's this new cool tech, but here's also the skills on how to use it properly.
yeah, that way you're putting it together, and I've always been a big fan of that. People have asked me over the years, my opinion on when I was working with people to provide them with a CMMS solution. Some of them would have consultants along for that ride, and there are some, I've heard it for years and years and years, a couple of decades, where, oh man, yeah, they've got this consultant on this deal I'm trying to work on, and I'm like, well, so what? I mean, then work with them, right? Now, if they get a bad consultant or somebody that doesn't really care, then it's a different story. But you're right. The real deal pros are the ones that can kind of not only fill that gap, but make it all kind of work, because they're all about understanding the entire organization. That's what they're good at. George and his team at Reliability X, Andy Gager, you, if I'm allowed to say that, I think it makes a real difference, because you can get the perspective and fill in the gaps that you might not even know that you have. I think that's fair.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
whatever your appetite for this technology is, there are entry points there alongside those foundational skills. If you say, I don't want to use any kind of AI technology right now, okay, that's cool. Or if you want to jump in head first, well, there's a whole lot more basics that you're going to have to apply to use that AI and all those other cool, shiny things effectively.
Yeah. You said it, to use them effectively, appropriately and effectively, because we want effective first and foremost.
Right.
And you don't just slap it in there and it solves all your problems. It's a whole connected process that requires the people and the process based on those foundational elements. So it's good stuff. Now, I want to skip us to February, where we've got Streamline Conferences event. That's February 9th through 12th, folks. That's going to be in Greenville, South Carolina. You can go to Streamline Conferences website, check it out. Hit me up, or hit somebody up for a discount if you want to get in there and attend. But you're going to be doing a presentation, And I want to have you talk a little bit about that, just so people have an idea of the flavor around what you're doing at Streamline.
Absolutely. So it's going to be packed with some of the leading minds in the maintenance and reliability space, and I've got an opportunity to speak there as well. But I'll be talking about the cycle of doom, a little bit of what we've been talking about today, and I've been writing about for several weeks now. But it'll kind of be a capstone for those who feel like my organization is just stuck. We just can't get it right. And you want to go to a conference, you want to get some takeaways, and this will be something where you can take some actionable steps and pair it with some other things that you're going to learn from some of these great minds in industry and say, hey, I can raise my hand and say, I'm waving the flag and saying, hey, here's what we need to fix first. Here's where we're bleeding out the most. We're hemorrhaging cash because of this one thing. And if it can help you create some margin and gain some clarity where you don't have it, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And there, at that event, there's going to be, we'll call it a tool that you're going to put in folks' hands. So, anybody that, is on the fence about Streamline, this is an event where it's focused on the community and the outcomes. It's not for selling a bunch of stuff. You've got real workshops run by real deal pros. You've got sessions. The lineup for this one is so strong. I can't wait until we get there and see it all unfold. But Trent McJunkin, I want to thank you for once again being here with me on CMMS Radio. And I can't wait to see you at Streamline Conferences down in Greenville.
Thanks, Greg. It's going to be great.
Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.